All right, guys. So we had a comment on video. What was the last video or the video before? I think it was the video before. But I thought instead of writing a big long comment, and then I'd do a video so everybody could see. So we were talking about thermostats. This is a thermostat for a 440. This is a thermostat, an aftermarket, obviously, out of a Cummins. Now they do have a pressure bypass or an anti-cavitation puck on them. Technically, I think the name is, I think they're actually, it's called an anti-cavitation spring or valve, I guess you'd say valve. So basically this little puck has a little spring on it, doesn't have a lot of tension, pushes up against this, you guys can see there. Pushes up against that, right in here, that right there. So it just, and it doesn't have a lot of load on it. It's not great amount of load. So if you take that hole, lines up with this hole, just that one hole, and then this hole just goes back into the regular thermostat, into the housing, right? So take in consideration when it's running, this hole, see how big that hole is? Actually, you might have a hard time. It's actually throttled down at the bottom. It's not that big. When it's running, there's coolant actually going out of that hole constantly, whether the valve is open or not. So you rev the truck up, this valve is overcome by pressure. This valve is overcome by pressure and it bypasses completely. And the reason that they have that is for an anti-cavitation. So if you look down this hole, you will be able to see there's a hole in there. So basically what it is the coolant will come out of this hole, that hole, which is linked in the block, which does not link, well it does link, but you can't see through it. Like that cavity doesn't, you can't see any light, right? So the coolant will come out of this hole and feed into this hole back into the back of the water pump, because this is where your coolant comes in, right here, if that makes sense. So the coolant comes in, water pump pushes it, disperses it into the block through the head, right? So all this does is gives it a bypass at higher RPM for anti-cavitation, so that you aren't starving anything while the thermostat is physically closed, so that everything can move coolant. So by putting this thermostat in without that, basically all it does is it lets coolant flow through this hole all the time. Like this hole is always open. It lets coolant flow through this hole. Now, that being said, it only flows through that little tiny that little hole, which is about the same size as the hole that's throttled down in there. Now, I understand, sorry, I can't remember what your name was at the moment, and I don't have my phone's dead, so I can't even look it up. But basically, by doing away with that, there is no ill effect that I have found. I run one of these in my truck in the summertime at, which should be about, let's say, ambient temperature between 80 and 90 degrees, and towing, and the truck makes 750 horsepower, and I do not turn it down, running 22 to 24 degrees timing. Obviously, I'm not using all 600 or set between, I don't know exactly what I'm running in the summertime right at the moment, but last year, I'm on my winter tune now. I dynoed it with my winter tune at 622 horsepower at the wheels. So even if you're talking 600 horsepower at the wheels, I tow my car trailer with my race truck on it with this thermostat, and I have never had an overheating problem, unless you keep your foot into it for too long. But you're talking a cooling capacity, the cooling capacity of those trucks is like 350, 375 on the high end, and they can't keep themselves cool. So, and I've never overheated it. Sometimes you gotta let your foot out of the throttle a little bit, but but that is something I'm gonna play with, is thermostat stuff, especially when I get the dyno. We're gonna dyno a bunch of numbers and then hook a trailer to it and tow it. So, but anyways, I just figured I would talk a little bit about it. So there is a reason for this, and it is an anti-cavitation thing, but if it's not being used, it does not make a difference, because the anti-cavitation now circuit is open all the time, so it won't do that. I guess you could argue that you're going to be bypassing coolant that doesn't need to be bypassed all the time, but take in consideration, when you got your foot on the throttle, you're driving down the highway, doesn't matter how hot it is, this valve is going to be open. So the pressure of the system is going to shove that valve open. So take that into consideration. It's an anti-cavitation thing, so that when the thermostat's not open, it's still moving fluid. So saying that this not being there is going to make it overheat doesn't really make sense, being that when you're driving down the highway, it's not open, it's open anyway. So anyways, I just thought I would do a little video about that. And I don't know how much fluid will actually move through these holes, but that's how big the hole in the head gasket is right there. So that little hole there, I don't think is going to be detrimental to the system, even if it was wide open all the time. My personal opinion. You guys let me know down in the comments what you think, because I'm curious. Like, I don't know everything, but I have played around with this stuff before, just to see. And I've never seen an ill effect of using one without the valve on there. So if there is an ill effect, I've never seen it. I've never cooked a motor because of it. And they're not, like, I'm not running, like if I buy a truck that's low horsepower, let's say a 160 horse truck, that truck's 160 horsepower for about maybe 2 or 3 days before I at least double the horsepower, like for sure. Like, there's no break-in period, no grace period or nothing. It's going to be turned up. Like, I honestly don't even usually drive them home before I turn them up. So, like I said, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification button, and let me know. Let me down in the comments. Like I said, if you have any questions, comments on this. I've never had an ill effect. I've run lots of these. I have run this. I have run one of these thermostats in the wintertime, and I did that in my first gen in 2003. I've been running one of these in the wintertime since 2003. I do sometimes take it out. I was switching my thermostats, because I used to switch my injectors too, which I haven't been doing lately, but I used to switch my injectors as well. So I would switch my thermostat back to a 180, but I found that in the second gen truck, I wasn't having any overheating issues, as long as you're not using 600 horsepower with the 195 in it anyway. But that is something that we are going to play around with in the summer, because I'm actually going to be using that truck to tow the race truck, and maybe actually in an enclosed trailer this year. We'll see. I've been looking at an used enclosed trailer, but anyways, that's another video. So let me know. Talk to you later. Thanks for watching.